Hi, Charlie here. On the surface, many videos can appear normal at a first glance. But when you peel back the layers and find out the backstories to the videos, they can be terrifying. Here are some videos that on the surface appear totally harmless, but they are hiding the scariest backstories. Elizabeth Barraza. In 2019, Elizabeth Barraza was living with her husband, Sergio. They lived in Tomball, Texas. Their 5-year anniversary was coming up. To celebrate, they were planning on taking a trip to Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. They were big fans of the Star Wars franchise. Elizabeth would often dress up in a stormtrooper outfit. She would then go to a local hospital and cheer up all of the patients inside. It's safe to say Elizabeth was a really great woman. Elizabeth wanted to get some extra money for their trip, so one morning she decided to do a yard sale. In the early hours of January 25th, Elizabeth Barraza went out to her front yard. She began laying things out that she was going to sell. But at 7 AM a vehicle stops and pulls up beside her. A dark figure with long hair who appears to be wearing a bathrobe approaches Elizabeth. Elizabeth seems relaxed and says good morning. But that's when the person pulls out a firearm. They pull the trigger 3 times. Elizabeth then falls to the ground, and they pull the trigger once more. They did this at point-blank range, making sure Elizabeth would not survive. The killer then jumps into their pickup truck and drives away quickly. Of course, everyone in the area was saddened because Elizabeth was so well liked, but they were just as confused as they were sad. There seemed to be no motive at all. Whoever did this did not steal anything from Elizabeth. They simply took her life and then drove away. Footage of the event was captured from a neighbor's surveillance camera. We know that Elizabeth said good morning in a friendly tone to this person. That's because police released Ring camera footage from Elizabeth's house. The shooter's car was picked up on various surveillance cameras, but it was never traced anywhere. Police aren't even sure if the person who did this is male or female. It really seems like this was a planned assassination, but no one is sure why. Elizabeth got on well with everyone. Her friends and family were interviewed, but they all said she had no enemies who would do such a thing. Another weird fact is Elizabeth told no one she was going to do a yard sale. It was spontaneous. She never mentioned it on social media or anywhere else. Her husband Sergio was investigated as a suspect, as is often the case when one person in a couple is murdered. But after going through Sergio's phone, police found nothing of interest. The shooting happened around 5 minutes after Sergio left for work. Some would say this is good timing, but it's more likely that the shooter was waiting for Sergio to go to work. That way they would be alone with Elizabeth, and there would be less chance of them getting seen. It's very mysterious and eerie that we don't know who did this or why. Elizabeth was such a loved person in her community. As I mentioned, she was known for going into her local hospital to cheer up the patients. She had no idea that she would be taken to that same hospital after getting shot 4 times. The family is still seeking justice with a $20,000 reward. If you know anything about this case, then call the number on screen. The Jenny Jones Show. If you were alive in the 90s, I'm sure you remember the Jenny Jones Show. It was very similar to Oprah. It was hosted by Jenny Jones and was a light daytime TV show. On March 6, 1995, an episode of the Jenny Jones Show was being taped. It began like any other episode. Jenny Jones calmly introduced the episode's topic. It was a male-on-male crush. But this light-hearted segment would have serious consequences. It would also ruin many lives and lead to the end of the Jenny Jones Show. Scott Amadieu and his friend Donna Riley were on the show. While on the show, Scott said that he had a crush on his male friend named Jonathan Schmitz. Jonathan had been wearing headphones backstage and had heard none of this. Jonathan had no idea that Scott had been telling the audience that he had a crush on Jonathan. At first, Jenny Jones made Jonathan think it was Donna who had a crush on him. But eventually Jenny Jones said, "Guess what? It's Scott who has a crush on you, not Donna." The audience began laughing and clapping. and Jonathan seemed to take this rather well. He was totally straight and had no interest in Scott, but he seemed to take it pretty well and realize it was all fun and games. Of course, Jonathan was naturally uncomfortable, but he did not seem upset or angry at all. He simply laughed and said he was straight and not interested in a relationship with Scott. After the taping, Jonathan, Scott, and Donna went to get drinks and dinner. They then flew home together to Michigan, and it seemed like everything was fine. They were acting like the friends they'd always been. But when they returned home 3 days later, Scott left a flirty note outside Jonathan's apartment. The note said, "You have the right tools to turn this on." It's clear Scott meant this in a flirty way, but maybe it was too far, seeing as Jonathan had been kind of embarrassed on the TV show, and he decided to take Scott's life. He drove to purchase ammo and a shotgun. He then drove to Scott's house. He then aimed the shotgun at Scott and fired twice. During the trial, Jonathan said he was very embarrassed about what happened on the Jenny Jones show, and the flirtatious note from Scott sent him over the edge. But of course, this is no excuse to take someone's life. In 1996, Jonathan was found guilty. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison and was released in 2017. Scott's family sued the Jenny Jones show. The Jenny Jones show was found guilty and had to give Scott's family $25 million. And soon after, the show was taken off air. Nuclear fizzle. Nuclear bombs are scary. They are designed to create gigantic explosions, and most of the time extra things are added to the nukes to make the clouds even larger. But sometimes all of this fails, and you get what is known as a nuclear fizzle. This is the only publicly available footage of a nuclear fizzle. It was taken at the Yuma test site in 1956. A blindingly bright light can be seen, but it soon turns into a surprisingly small black cloud. This is known as a nuclear fizzle. This was part of the top-secret Operation Red Wing. It may look small, but this explosion was the equivalent to 200 tons of TNT, and it could wipe out anything in a 1-mile radius. Slumber Party. This image may look like a normal slumber party, but one of these women would not leave the slumber party alive. That woman was 41-year-old Tamla Horsford. Tamla was a very kind and energetic woman. In the fall of 2018, Tamla went to a friend's for a slumber party. The slumber party would be held at her friend Jean Mayer's home. There were 12 people besides Tamla at the party. This included 9 women, 2 men, and 1 husband who dropped off and picked up his wife. The women chatted, ate food, and drank booze. They also watched a football game on TV. The men watched the same game, but in a different room. At around 1:30 AM, guests began to go to bed, but Tamla stayed up. During the night, various photos and videos of Tamla were recorded. The last person to see Tamla alive was Bridget Fuller. They chatted briefly before Bridget went to bed. Over the next 10 minutes, the home security system registered the back door opening, closing, and then opening again. It also recorded the garage door opening, closing, and then opening again. At 8:30 the next morning, Madeline Lombardi, Jean Mayer's aunt, went downstairs for a cup of coffee. That was when she saw something outside in the backyard. It was Tamla Horsford. She was lying face down in the pajamas she was wearing the night before. The first thing Madeline did was kneel down and begin to pray. It's kind of weird she did this before calling 911. Eventually, Madeline woke up Jean, and Jean called 911. In the 911 call, she did not sound worried at all. She said it looks like Tamla had been drinking and fell off the balcony. She's not moving one bit. She's not breathing. She's completely face down in the yard. Cops arrived at the scene within 15 minutes. Paramedics also got there, but it was no use. Tamla was not alive. The party guests and the cops both said Tamla probably fell from the balcony, but an autopsy said her injuries were not consistent with a fall. Tamla's family believed that someone may have taken her life. But on February 20th, 2019, the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office closed the case. They said no crime had been committed. The case received no public recognition until 2 months later. That was when a witness was fired from his county court officer job. He had accessed the internal report and leaked it. People instantly began to think something was not right with the case. Many believed someone had purposely taken Tamla's life. The hashtag #JusticeForTamla went viral online, and many celebrities also came out saying they wanted to know more about the case. For example, T.I. and 50 Cent believe Tamla had had her life taken. In June of 2020, the case was reopened, but almost 1 year later, the case was quietly closed yet again, despite the fact that many, including Tamla's family, believe someone had taken her life. To this day, people are still trying to get justice for Tamla. But do you think this was simply a fall from a balcony? Or do you think this is a major cover-up and someone took Tamla's life? If you're enjoying this video, then why not subscribe and press the bell too? It really does help me out. Erica Hernandez. This video shows 40-year-old Erica Hernandez. She is leaving her brother's house on April 17th, 2021. It is the last video of Erica before she disappeared. She invited some family members over, but many could not make it. She did not want the food to go to waste, so she decided to drive it to her brother's house. Erica dropped off the food and left. Her kids were in the car with her, so she dropped them off back at home. She then drove back out to her best friend Maggie's house to give her some food. Erica left Maggie's house at around 2:30 a.m. As Erica was driving home, Maggie texted her checking if she'd got home safely, to which Erica replied, "I'm 5 minutes away from my house." 5 minutes later, Maggie texted her again saying, "Did you get home safe?" But Maggie never received a response. No one heard from Erica since. When Erica did not return home, her family realized something was wrong. They went out for a massive search, but found nothing. That was until about 1 month later. Erica's SUV was found in a local lake. Inside the vehicle, Erica was found. It's believed Erica's car may have somehow hit a curb, and then fell into the lake. But it's not entirely clear how this happened. Either way, authorities said no foul play occurred, and the case has been closed ever since. But now it's time for you to make your voice heard. Comment down below which was the scariest video on this list. But as always, thank you guys for watching. There are some more videos on screen now that you will love. And if you haven't already, then what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.